Welcome to the podcast. We are so glad that you joined us.
Because we have a special treat for you today. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, this was actually a ton of fun. But
was.
we have been on the road for 2 weeks.
Believe it or not, 2 weeks. Yeah.
And it is good to be in and sleep in my own bed.
Yes.
There is something enjoyable about visiting family and seeing new things.
And when we say we were gone for 2 weeks, it's not like we were at a beach house for 2 weeks. It's like we were here for 2 weeks, then we were here for 2 weeks. I'm sorry. We were here for 5 days, then we went someplace else for 2 nights, and then we went someplace else for a night.
Yeah, we were in like 4 different places in 2 weeks.
And that was a lot of transition.
And we had a great event out in up in Philly. What was that?
Yes, Call to Be Saints. Hello, all of our Call to Be Saints friends in Horsham, PA, outside of Philadelphia.
That was so much fun being with you guys.
Awesome.
And it fit in perfectly with our travel plan. So that was really, really great.
And we brought 3 of my sisters and my dad and my brother-in-laws all came. And so I think they had a fun time.
And we visited my family in Long Island. We visited your family in the Philly area. And
it was a very much of a beach. Everywhere we went, we had beautiful places that we were staying.
Yeah.
So we were in Cape May, New Jersey.
Which we did a family retreat, which we'll talk about in the next episode. So
that's right.
Stay tuned for that.
Talk a lot more about that in the next episode. But we were on the beach there for a week. And then we went up to Long Island and we were there. And we're also on the beach there.
Yeah.
So, and did some kayaking and,
it's always so good.
Beautiful stone
for
gathering.
For many years, we would travel to visit my family on Long Island, and we would do it during the Christmas and the winter season. And we thought, wait, what are we doing here? All my family lives pretty close to the beach, and we're only visiting in the winter. So my wise wife said, why don't we switch that and go visit them in the summer? and that was a great visit.
It was a great visit.
Yeah.
It was a great visit. All
right. So the treat for today. Oh, well, before we do that, one more thing with our ministry. We've been, if you haven't seen it yet, we did a video series with Shalom World. And the video series is
completed. All the videos are out, right? 12 episodes.
And they're awesome. And we will,
if we do say so ourselves, but we didn't do the editing or producing. We were just like the guests.
But
when we saw the final product that Shalom put out, it is really impressive. Those guys are real professionals. I mean, and they're doing it for their ministry. Like they're doing it to spread God's word.
Great.
And
it's so cool.
Yeah. So go and check that out. You can stream it for free at shalomworld.org. You can get the app.
The link to it
but there are 12 episodes about all various topics. They're only 26 minutes long. Get a group of friends together, watch it, discuss it. There's key takeaway points. We interview plenty of experts who are just real quality people. So anyway, check it out. It is free at shalomworld.org.
Yeah. And we, one of the things that we've been talking about I'll just mention it real briefly, is about building community of families, and Call to Be Saints. We were just with them, and they have this small group that gets together every month. Right.
That's right.
And I think they're looking at other activities throughout the month.
Not so small now because they're attracting a lot of young families.
Yeah. And we've seen this all over where there are families coming together, other married couples supporting each other, parents supporting each other. And we need that. And one of the things we feel a burden at the Messy Family Project, in addition to our podcasts, our courses, our free resources that we offer online, is we want to add some new resources to our toolkit. So that's why we've partnered with Shalom in creating this video series. And we are hoping to create in the near future a guide to go along with this, a discussion guide.
You're in the midst of grading it.
Right. And our hope would be that maybe you would look at what we're doing and saying, Messy Family is doing some great work in strengthening the church. Could you support us we're a nonprofit. We are independent. And therefore we rely on the generosity of our listeners, our supporters.
Right.
And we are trying to create new things to create community and get families together to support each other in this crazy mixed up world, and do new series like this with Shalom and others. By your $25 a month, maybe helps give us the standing or the kind of a surety to say, okay, we can continue to do the work that we do, and the team that we've assembled to help us serve families. So we'd want to invite you to donate to serve and strengthen families.
And it's not something asking for donations or having a donation drive, something that we do during the summer and then we do at the end of the year. And we and I just do want everybody to know who is listening is that we are completely independent, and we survive because of the generosity of the hundreds of small donors who are giving to this ministry, who listen to the podcast, and then, some major donors who are really helping us, get over that hump. But we really do need your support. So if the podcast has been a blessing to you, if our ministry has been a blessing to you, if you're like, wow, I can't believe they have all this free stuff on their website, that we can point other people to even, right. We just ask that you, support us and help us to help you.
Help us help you.
Exactly.
But it is one of those things that this morning I had a walk, and I was really convicted about our callings, and each one of us as Christians have a calling from God for some particular work. Mm-hmm. And this is ours. Yeah. Our particular work, the way that we're supposed to be leaven in the culture, is to be here for families. Mm-hmm. It wasn't always our calling in a specific way, but we believe this is what we're called to. And so we are excited to embrace this, because we really do believe that when you change the family, when you change just one family, you make them a little bit stronger, make them a little bit more united. Yeah. You make a little bit more love, a little bit more God in that family. It changes exponentially that family tree. And that's how we change the world. Yeah. And so we're excited with the new things that we're trying to do with the Messy Family Project. And we'd love to have you a part of it for us.
And we have some great things as a thank you for your donation. That's we have right. our beautiful Yetis here that they're available to you. And we also have a book bag with a family fun kit that has our family retreat guide in there that we're going to talk about actually more next podcast, as well as a bunch of activities and other books and things for you, because we love giving stuff away to people.
Yeah, it's awesome.
As a thank you for your donation, you can go check out all of that, messyfamilyproject.org/give. to see all of the great gifts you can get for supporting us.
All right. So we have for the last couple of years been doing these larger public date nights.
Yes.
With some great, wonderful couples out there sharing their insights, their personal experiences, as well as the wisdom that they've earned and learned over the years. And this conversation that we have with Peter and Debbie Herbeck is exceptional. We had hundreds of people that joined us online for this date night. We'll do another date night in the fall soon, and we'll announce that later. But this conversation with them was so enriching. We felt so, kind of connected with their heart and what they care about and the way that they approach their family. It was different. A number of parts were different, and it was so beautiful. Yeah. And I felt like there was just very, very practical. Like they're both the book that they wrote, but just the way they approached it was so accessible to me. And I think to a lot of folks, at least that was a lot of the comments we got from the folks who joined us live for that virtual date night.
Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoy this interview with Peter and Debbie Herbeck. So let's go ahead and jump right in.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, friends. Thanks for joining us tonight. It is great to see you jump in.
Yay. Hello, Francisco and Joyce. So I'm so happy to see your faces. This is awesome. Oh, great. We see some familiar friends here. Wonderful. Madison, hello. We see people that we've seen at past events, which is always wonderful. And it is very helpful to have, we got to change our name here, but it is so wonderful to see you guys. Hello, Lisa and Bill. Been so long. Yay. Yay. Oh, great. So welcome to anyone who is new. We are so happy that you joined us on this date night. It's going to be really wonderful. And I'm just really looking forward to some great conversation, real life, like honest conversation, and about family life.
You had a lot of choices, a lot of places you could be tonight, a lot of things going on.
Be watching.
There were a lot of excuses you could have made, but you showed up. Yeah. You're the warriors here, okay? You're putting yourself among the elite in tonight's date night.
We were just chatting with our guests, Peter and Debbie, before this, but we were just saying tonight we had two young families who we had at our house for dinner, as well as my parents. And dinner time, when you're having dinner with, 7 kids under 7, it was a little cray-cray. Yeah, definitely. So maybe not, I don't know how what your homes were like, but we were like, yeah, I remember this, people crying, not finishing their dinner, stuff being spilled, like all of that. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. But our heart is with you young parents who are out there in the trenches.
It is really great to see you. I think it's always great to just find out where everyone's coming from. So in the chat, could you put city and state of where you're from? And if you're from another country, make sure to add that as well. But if you can put that in the chat right now, that would be so fun. All right. We got Meade, Colorado.
Colorado. Lots of people from Colorado, Canada.
Ontario, Philly.
My parents are on, and they are from the Philadelphia area as well.
St. Petersburg, Florida.
Yes.
Newborough, Mass. St. Louis, Missouri.
Welcome.
Arkansas, Pensacola.
And we're going to have a couple questions. So, be ready. Idaho. Oh, man. We have the whole United States here.
North Carolina, Idaho. Yeah. Lawrence, Kansas. Oh, we love going out to Kansas.
Oh, is that Ken? Where is Ken? I'm like, wait a minute. I think these are our friends.
Charlottesville, Virginia. Oh, this is great. Isn't it fun just to see that we're all on tonight? We're all together. Sometimes we feel like we're the only ones out there, and you're not. You are not. This is so good to be together. Minnesota. Good job.
Okay, so next question that we have for you. We have 3 questions.
All right,
first question.
Go ahead.
And second question is, what year were you married? So just put in the year you were married, because if you ask people how long you were been married,
people fight over the debate. Okay. So
here we go. 1994. That's us too. We're also married in 94 and 95. Very good.
15, 17, 11.
Young married couples. All right.
2000.
So this is going to be important because we are going
to. Is anybody married in the last? Let's see. Are there some more coming here? Let's see.
Yes. All right. 1983. Oh, some of the older married couples on here. Thank you for joining us. I know we're looking at sending.
All right. So anybody in the 2020s, anybody in the last three to 5 years?
You can do the hand raising thing if you've been married in
5 years or less.
We'll put it this way: after COVID, in case you forget.
In the midst of, or
yes, I see some big smiles on people's faces here. So you can raise your hand if you want. Kristen and Joseph. Oh, somebody's having a happy anniversary.
Is this your anniversary tonight? Woohoo! All right.
We have to give them a book. We have.
All right. Easy. All right. So we got a copy of the book here for you. Could you just privately chat us your address, Kristen and Joseph, so we can get that off to you? That is awesome.
Kristen, and what's years married? You can put it in the chat if you want. 2 years married.
Wait, 23?
Oh, 23. You look like you're married 2 years. Good. You can ask them. All
right.
I think there you go.
32 years. There we go. All right.
Now, that's awesome.
Now, where are you guys from, Kristen and Joseph? Sorry, we're asking. You're on the spot tonight. This is your anniversary. You chose to be here. So go ahead.
In Ontario, Canada.
Oh, you're from Canada?
Ontario?
Yep. A little town called Cumbermere.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so you Madonna House? Are you part of Madonna House?
Oh, that's
we're neighbors.
Awesome. So I went there when I was a very young child. That is awesome. Oh, thank you for coming. It's so good to see you.
All right. So make sure you chat us so we have your address there.
Okay, there we go. So that's the first book. You want to give away the second book?
All right. So we'll do the second book. Do you want to just do it for the most
newly married?
So who's been married less than, so that was 32 years. We'll go for anyone for 5 years. 5 years or less. Oh, someone raised their hand. Let's see. Where did that go? All right.
I think that, can you unmute yourselves there?
All right. I can't read that far.
Yeah, I see. I got it. Or you can put in that. I already did it. Can you tell us? You can put us in the chat how many years you've been married. Rogolio. They are typing.
All right. That's right. We're all watching you type. No pressure if you get it wrong. You got to agree on how long you've been married, though, at this point.
6 years. Okay.
All right.
6 years. And
6 years. All right. So nobody can beat that, right? Okay. You guys as well. Can you chat in privately to us your address? Thank you, Kristen and Joseph. And we will send you off a copy of the book, what we'll be talking about here.
Okay. So now this is our last question. All right. And it might
There's no prizes involved in this. Okay. Let's just put that up.
You are so welcome. The last question we have is just to get to know each other and for fun trivia. What is your song? The song that you dance to at your wedding? So Chris and Joseph, they have this on their mind. They probably already played it today.
And you can argue about it, but
yes.
All right, can you read them out?
All right, I think this is so interesting. Okay, Lost in This Moment. All I ask of you, Phantom of the Opera, beautiful. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Somebody else said Lost in This Moment. So Annie's song, let's see here. I go. It's, gosh, you guys are so fast. This is awesome. When I Said I Do, Beneath Your Beautiful. Jack Johnson, I Got You. Heartbeat, Carrie Underwood. Somewhere Over the Rainbow. That is different. I've never.
There you go.
I have, and I always will. Be My Life's Companion. These are awesome. Let's Stay Together.
In My Life with the Beatles. There we
Through
go.
the Hands of Love. Marry Me. Oh, that's beautiful. I like write all these down.
This is great. We're just getting a good playlist right here. Okay. This is for our next date night playlist. There we go.
Well,
Endless Love.
I Believe in You. This
Celine
is,
Dion.
I love it. The prayer. Awesome. I love it. I'm definitely going to copy all.
All right, we're saving this all.
Spotify playlist.
All right. For those who aren't familiar with the Messy Family Project, we're Mike and Alicia Hernan of the Messy Family Project, and we have 10 children, and we have, I was about to say 5 grandchildren
and
with 2 on the way.
So technically 7 grandchildren.
And we are, we're really on a mission to help empower moms and dads to embrace their sacred calling. We believe that there's never been a more important moment for moms, dads, husbands, and wives to lean more fully into our vocation. And we believe that when you transform the family, you have the opportunity for Christ to transform the world. And there's never been a time, I believe, where it's more important that we focus in on our marriage and on our family life. And it is great to have you here tonight. This is one of a number of date nights that we offer. We've had date nights with Scott and Kimberly Hahn, Jeff and Emily Cavins, and Chris and Natalie Stefanik, and Ted and Beth Cerie, and I'm probably missing somebody else in there. But we do these probably one in the spring or the summer.
Twice a year.
Twice a year.
This is, you're catching us at a really great time. Yeah.
And then we do this also for our members once a month and on a kind of more intimate basis. And we, in addition to these kind of events, we also have our podcast that goes out to a couple thousand folks every month.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of you are listeners and supporters.
And we wanted to share with you real quick before we introduce our guest and get into our interview. We want to share with you about a special event that we are doing that is coming up in February. And this is our Catholic Couples Getaway. And so we are going to Punta Cana, the Dominican Republic. And I just want to note that a getaway, this is not a retreat. Okay. So it's not a retreat and it's also not a vacation. So what do we mean by that? So a retreat is more focused, obviously, on a time of prayer and a little bit more intense, and even just spiritually rejuvenating. And this will be that. But what we've decided to do is that give you lots of leisure time, but we also want to give you time to listen to some talks that will give you tools on how to go deeper into your marriage. So we do prayer and talks in the morning, give you all afternoon and most of the evening to be together and just enjoy your time together, whether that means taking a nap or walking on the beach or doing something adventurous or being with other great couples. You can do that. But then also in the evening, we have another time of prayer together and socializing. And it's a wonderful time for you to meet other people, but also for you to be together and to really be rejuvenated with true leisure with your spouse.
And again, you can find it on our website, but it's at CatholicCouplesGetaway.com. Alicia and I, along with Father Sean Monahan, a fabulous priest, oblate of the Blessed Virgin Mary, as well as Chris and Natalie Stefanik, will be the team that will be putting on the Getaway. And it's really going to be a great time. If you don't know Chris and Natalie Stefanik, Chris runs Real Life Catholic. He's been, I think he's got Amazon, Netflix, he's Unformed. He's got a ton of stuff out there. But we also want to say one other thing.
We would be remiss to neglect to talk about the most wonderful feast day tomorrow, a celebration of the love of Jesus, the solemnity of the most sacred heart of Jesus. And we at the Messy Family Project have a devotion to the Sacred Heart, which was started really with my grandmother and then my parents, and now in Mike's family, and now in our family. And so we promote devotion to the Sacred Heart in the month of June through our Play and Pray Challenge. So if you haven't done the Play and Pray Challenge, these are the 3 elements to go on a date with your spouse, have a family day, and make Jesus king. And so we want to encourage people tomorrow, take your family to mass. You can go to our website and download a very easy enthronement ceremony where you get a picture, an image of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and put it in a place of honor in your home to let the world know Jesus is the king of our home. And when you do that, you receive so many graces, and more than ever, families need more grace, right? So a great way to do that is devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And you can find more about that on our website, messyfamilyproject.org/challenge.
Okay. And that, again, the feast is tomorrow, June 16th. Feast day
tomorrow.
And there are at least 2 people here tonight who I know that's their birthday as well. So this is a beautiful day tomorrow. Way to make Christ the king of your family, and that all that you need to do an enthronement or a reconsecration of your family to the Sacred Heart is available there online.
Do you want to tell them whose birthday it is tomorrow?
No. We'll leave them in suspense.
All right. We'll tell you at the end.
It'll be part of the quiz that we'll ask you.
That's right. At the end, we'll take guesses. If we had a third book, we would give it to whoever guesses. Okay, so let's introduce our guests. Let's get into our interview, which we're so excited to share with you all. So we are going to introduce to you Peter and Debbie Herbeck. So Peter Herbeck is the Executive Vice President and Director for Missions of Renewal Ministries, which is, if you're familiar with Ralph Martin, that is the ministry of Ralph Martin founded. But Peter is the co-host of the weekly television show, The Choices We Faced, and the host of the daily radio show, Fire on Earth. So he's an author and frequent conference speaker. And like I mentioned, my parents are on here and they have listened to Peter for years. And I know Mike has talked to him before, met him before at different conferences. But what is so amazing is that his wife, Debbie, is also an evangelist and minister in her own right. So she is the founder and executive director of Pine Hills Girls Camp and the founder and leader of Be Love Revolution. A ministry exists to help young women encounter Christ and be his love to all they meet. So we just want to say welcome to Peter and Debbie. And the reason we have them on for not just all the reasons we mentioned, but they have written this book, Lessons from the School of Love, which it is. We were going to talk about this book now and at the end throughout their time together. It is very, very worth every family reading. And anyway, I won't get into it now. Because
we were told by within time that came out, I had Scott Hahn telling me, you need to read this book, to some other folks saying, you've got to pick this up. I couldn't get it away from my wife to read the book itself. So
a young family we're very good friends with who have 5 children. Their oldest is like 11. His wife was just like eating it up. She loved it. It was really, yeah.
So Peter and Debbie, welcome. It's so great to have you with us here tonight.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So just Lessons from the School of Love is just such a great title. And ours would be Lessons from the School of a little bit
messy
lessons that we've learned. But
but I think you bring that out in the book, though.
No,
too, right?
It's great. But why did you write the book? What was on your heart when you put the book together? And
in the last decade, Debbie and I both had separately, but the Lord sort of prompting us to say, open your hearts to serving marriage and family. It's this, ground zero of the big battle that's going on across the globe. And so we started doing some talks and retreats and stuff. But then Scott Hahn and the folks from Emmaus Road contacted us and asked us to consider writing the book. And initially I was like, well, I'm not an expert. I kind of immediately in my mind, I thought I need to make an expert book, and I'm not an expert, and
we all feel like that. Exactly.
Yeah. And so they came back and said, no, we want to really hear your story, basically. So, well, if we can write a book that's short, practical, transparent, like really honest, but also the things the Lord taught us and how people helped us with things, we'd be happy to do it. So, and then the title Lessons from the School of Love emerged from, I think, some interaction with one of the editors at Emmaus. But bottom line was my daughter, Sarah, who's the oldest, at her wedding, a good priest friend of ours who was presiding at the wedding, one of the readings was 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind, that big passage everybody knows about. And he got up to give his homily, and he's kind of reading it. He goes, yeah, love is patient, love is kind. And he gets to the line which says, love never fails. And he kind of stops and he looks up and he goes, seems to me love fails a lot. And everybody just kind of froze in the church, like, where's this,
Wow.
Yeah. And we looked, and his point was to say, the meaning of that passage is God's love never fails and God is with you. And he's totally faithful and covenanted to you. And then he turned to Sarah and Rick and he said, we're so excited for you. We know this young love that's growing in you and all that. And he said, but I just want to tell you today, you don't know how to love yet.
Wow.
And he said, but this is a good thing. You're entering the school of love.
Ooh.
This is the place where Jesus is going to teach you how to love. And this is the whole point.
Yes.
So, wow, that's actually true.
Yeah.
But it was like, at first when he was talking like that, it was like a buzzkill, like, wait a minute, is he kind of, what's going on? But it was really a wise thing to say. And so we like the title Lessons from the School of Love because we feel like we're still in school.
Yes.
And
so true.
As grandparents, we're learning, and learning to
Yes.
love each other at this stage of life and love our kids and all that. So that's kind of the genesis of it. But
that's beautiful.
What I think sometimes is kind of jarring to people when they first get married too, is that to realize that these lessons, sometimes they are filled with joy and sometimes they're easy lessons. It's hard to learn how to love, like it's a hard thing to do. And I think that it's good to be honest about that, to say and this is why I appreciated your book so much, because of that honesty in those stories about just saying, yeah, learning how to love. It's like, I would say Jesus didn't say, come tiptoe through the tulips and, and follow me. Jesus said, pick up your cross and follow me. But at the same time, my yoke is easy and my burden is light, and that, it's hard, but he's always there with us, as we learn these hard lessons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And as we look at this, it reminds me of a couple we were meeting with just recently who have a rich, vibrant individual prayer life, but they're struggling at loving each other as a married couple. And they were realizing that they're not growing in their spiritual life. We don't have our spiritual life over here, our marriage over here, our parenting. It's we're one person, and you're speaking into a challenge that we all have.
I feel like Debbie, you have some thoughts on that.
Well, I love the image from the scripture, unless the Lord builds the house. So if you think about your marriage and your family as a house that the Lord is building, the first thing is a foundation, obviously. If you go and you start to decorate, who cares? I mean, if it's, the first storm that comes, the house is going to collapse. And so that was one of the points we really wanted to come through loud and clear, is how important the foundation is as you're building your house. And that foundation for each of us was our own individual relationship with the Lord. And then how to grow that individually and how to help one another do that, as a married couple, but also as, a mother and a father and all the challenges, and then how to begin to grow together as you build that house. So I think the first principle really is like, what is your foundation? And if it's not, if it's not in the Lord, when the trials and the storms come, not if, but when they come, you need that foundation set very deeply. So we learned that early on, and we worked on it.
Yeah.
So why do you think that is so important to have your foundation set in your relationship with the Lord? Like you said, yes, because trials come, right?
Yeah.
But in general, why do you, can you just speak to that, to those people who would be like, hey, all I know is I got married, I'm a Catholic, but now you're talking about my relationship. Why is that so important to me being a good spouse or a mom or a dad?
I think there's like a lot of answers to it. The very first one is your eternal salvation is kind of on the line.
There you go. Just that.
Fundamentally, do we believe that Jesus is the Lord of our lives, and have we given ourselves over to that? But I think on another level, something we learned, and I think probably everybody watching knows this, is that my spouse, Peter, who I love dearly, cannot be everything for me. And if I try and make him,
shocking.
Right? Yeah. If I try to make him the Lord of my life, I'm setting him up for failure. He's going to fail miserably because he's not qualified to be the Lord of my life. He's qualified to be, my husband and, all of that other stuff with the Lord's help. So I think, the world's notion of love is that you meet this one person, and this one person fulfills every single need you have. And which is impossible, which is why the marriage, the rate of failure with marriages is what it's at. So I think just like practically speaking, on an emotional, physical, spiritual level, one person can't be everything for you. And so we need the Lord, the only one who can be everything for us, to really be the foundation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And marriage is a natural reality, but Christian marriage is a supernatural reality.
Yes.
And it's, so many as Catholics, we get married in church and we have the sacrament, but it seems like lots of people don't know how to tap into the reality of, we did it. We were supposed to get married in church. We did it. We cared about that. It was valuable, but we didn't really know how to draw strength for actual daily life.
Yes.
We don't know how to live in a way that it makes a difference for us, other than I know that I have certain responsibilities and it matters that I be a good guy and, obey the commandments and all that, and often fall short and don't know how to figure it all out. But it's not like most people are tapping into the resource which comes directly from the Lord and the Holy Spirit and his covenant commitment to us in the marriage. And that's something we had to learn over time. And sometimes, you need God's grace to get through your own limitations, brokenness, pride, whatever it is, to humble ourselves, to be able to love each other in a way that the Lord wants us to love. He said, come and learn from me. I'm meek and humble of heart.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Peter Herbeck's not meek and humble of heart by nature. You know what I mean? Right. And I literally realized in marriage at a deeper level how much I needed to learn that. And I was powerless sometimes to be able to get to it. And I'm embarrassed to say, the first year of marriage, sometimes you have a little bit of conflict, you started having conflict and having communication problems. And I literally said this, every woman on here is going to hate me for this, but I said to Debbie, at a certain point, I said, well, Deb, wait a minute. I live with houses with 10 guys. I grew up in a big family and I never had conflict like this. It must be you. You know what I mean? It was like, it must be more you than me.
I'm sorry. I want to get a snapshot of Debbie's eye. That was.
Okay. It wasn't but it was like something like, let's fix you and it'll work.
That's right. That's right. I love it. Well, and that's how you learn at the school of love, right? Sometimes it's a school of hard knocks too, Yeah. And it's like, in reality, the reason I was struggling was every other relationship I ever had is sort of like a relationship of convenience or family. You know what I mean? It's like, and if you don't like it, just move. You don't move away, just go in the other room. You don't have to, you're not two people coming together, living a vocation. And that's why, it exposes both the greatness of what God has put in you, but also a whole lot that's still in you that the Lord wants to help shape and form to look like him, to be able to love someone the way he loves other people.
you know?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
No, that's so true. And at the key, like one of the cornerstones, if you will, that we always talk about and we always hear from so many people is the desire for communication, in our marriage relationship.
And that's a great example that you gave of how not to communicate.
Yeah, because if there's more ways, like
there's a lot more where that comes from. But anyway,
hey, we could go on. This is all pro tips, particularly for men here, right? We have challenges in communicating and being understood and understanding our other, right? And but we're called to communion. So there's this real challenge that's put forward to us. So what are some of the challenges that you've experienced, that you've witnessed in others when talking about communication? Just so that we could kind of set the stage for couples out there. Are they alone in having challenges in communication? Or are we the only ones? Is it only us?
Probably, yeah. You guys probably.
I think one thing we noticed early on in marriage, and I've shared this in different talks I've given, is I think expectations can be very different with men and women, and
very good.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the way that we communicate those expectations or don't. I think early on in our marriage, I wasn't very good at asking for help, and I thought, well, if Peter really wanted to help me, he would intuitively know that I needed help. By the way, shout out to the couple here who's folding laundry together. I love it. This guy right here who's actually doing it. I don't know if you intuited that your wife needed help, but that's great. But an example, like, I'd be with the kids all day and babies, and Peter would be gone and then come home and there'd be a big basket of laundry unfolded in the middle of the room. And most women, even friends I know who would come over, would be on their knees like, let's get this done.
100%. Yes.
Peter just kind of, I don't even know if he looked at it, but he definitely walked around it.
Were you wearing man goggles at the time, Peter? I
guess I was born with them. I don't know.
They've even hurdled it to show me how. But anyway, so that's like one little example of like, don't you see that that's there and that's something that needs to get done? And why aren't you doing it? And it's the fact you're not doing it, saying something to me about your willingness to help. And so we had these kind of back and forth where that was a lack of good communication, certain expectations. And finally, we had this conversation and Peter just said, listen, I am not like a woman. I don't intuit necessarily when you need help.
That's right.
Baseline is I love you and I want to help you, but you need to ask me to help you. Now, if you ask,
tell me what your needs are.
Tell me what your needs are.
Yeah.
And if you don't, and if you ask and I don't respond, then we have a problem because I'm not caring for you in the way you should.
Right.
So, but me not asking doesn't mean I don't care. I don't know if women, if you can resonate with it, just nod your head up there.
You know what? We literally last night had a conversation with a couple who I'm going to send them this video afterwards and be like, look, this is a very common thing. And I don't know why. Maybe it's the intuition or maybe, I don't know why, but you're so right that it's not fair to expect things of your husband without communicating them. But at the same time, I wanted that too. Like I wanted to not be able to talk, Go ahead, Peter, what were you going to say?
Well, I'm just going to say Debbie's been involved in ministry with young women for many, many years. And it's amazing to me to see how common it is, even at a young age, for girls to intuit what other girls need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they just feel
beautiful.
it and respond to it. And it's part of who they are. It's part of the feminine genius. It honestly is.
Yeah.
I would say that it's not like I don't want to help. It's like sometimes I don't see things and just tell me I'm 100% in your corner.
Yeah.
What the hump we had to get over was she was like, but look, if you loved me, if you really loved me, like, you would be able to see the need and respond to it.
Right. Right.
I was like, hey, I'm a weak and broken person and kind of dull. And it's not like I don't want to know, or I'm just being purely selfish. Right. Tell me, so I'm happy to help you, So it was just one of those things. And it was hard because she said, for a while, there was like, well, why would I need to tell you something so obvious? You know what I mean? That's so obvious, And I said, well, I guess I'm dull. I don't know.
You know what I wonder?
People, not every guy's like that. It's not like, but it's are like that,
That's right.
So Peter, do you think over time though, just to kind of like play it forward now that you've been married, how long have you been married? How many years married? Have you been married?
36 years. We just celebrated our anniversary. So
congratulations. So after 36 years, Peter, do you think that you have gotten better at that? About learning to see that?
Maybe we should ask Debbie, but yes.
Actually,
Yeah.
So, I mean, but it does grow.
Is he got a passing grade right now, Debbie?
He's a B+ for sure.
Okay. Oh, that's solid.
That's a long way from where I was.
That's right.
But I guess what I'm saying too is that to realize that it doesn't have to stay that way forever, and that as you communicate through that communication over the years, you change, I've gotten better at being able to say what I need. And I think that Mike has gotten better at seeing what the needs are just from simply living together, right? Like, got to give these husbands and wives hope here.
Because it is a habit. It's a habit of being aware, being, knowing our spouse, discovering who they are, how they are loved, how they were served. But it's still, even now in our 29th year of marriage, I still have to ask, hey, how can I love you in this way? How, what does that look like? And can you make it really specific for me? Because I need sometimes a list, of this is how I can love you, right?
Maybe the Nick and Jane version of the story.
If there are pictures, that would be great. Yes. No, but do you think obviously there are times when this is more masculine, more feminine. It could be both. It could be, but do you find that I've found that obviously men have this challenge, right? There is this feminine genius that is oriented towards language, oriented towards intuition, oriented towards relationships as a whole. And then men were just strong. And, but what could men do? How can men be more effective in understanding, and maybe I'll ask Debbie this question, at seeking to understand more, at communicating more effectively, overcoming some of those hurdles. What advice would you give to some men?
I think listening well, being a good listener, it is really important, kind of an attentiveness, which is hard to do just humanly, I think, especially when you're in the midst of raising a lot of kids and there's just a lot of activity happening. I think it's hard to do that. So I just think for both men and women, don't give up on this area because it does get better. Communication takes work in this area. And there's lots of things about communication. Peter and I are really different temperament-wise and personality-wise. And he actually is very, if you haven't noticed already, he's very verbal, very extroverted, very externally processing things. I tend to be a little bit quieter.
Internal processor.
Internal processor, totally. And so we've had to learn some things even when we're together in social settings or public settings for him to learn how to give me space to speak, and to be patient with my process of how I work through things. I've had to be patient in letting him process externally or, talk a long time about something he's passionate about just because that's the way he expresses his passion about something. So even just personality wise, I think
that's right.
It's the things you love about the person when you're dating, and then you start living together and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so annoying. Will they stop talking already? Like I've heard the story a million times, but that's the love part. Okay. That's not the distraction part. This is where love begins to kick in, where you say, this is what it really means to love is to go the extra mile here. So
yeah, that's good. I think one of the things that I found helpful to make that happen was, and we write this in the book because we try to be practical, and some good friends of ours talked to us when we had multiple kids coming and we had young people living in our house with us, and I was traveling internationally. We had a lot going on. And so you need better communication, and it's easy not to be attentive to each other when you got a lot of balls in the air, in the way that it's really helpful. And so they said, hey, maybe you guys know Randy and Tree Cerner. Randy was like looking after us a little bit and helping and sheepdogging me a little bit. And he said, you guys ought to consider having a weekly husband and wife meeting.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like a date night or something? He goes, no, not a date night. Have date nights, but have a husband and wife meeting. Yeah. I said, about what? And he said about all the practical realities that are really important for you two to be in good communication on a regular basis. And so we ended up like we would get a babysitter or something once a week, and we'd get an hour to 90 minutes, and we do basically 4 things. The first thing was, honey, how are you doing? You know, you got my undivided attention, both of us, you know, how are you actually doing right now? You know, what am I missing? How can I love you? How can I support you? And then the other way around. So it was uninterrupted focus. And then we'd say, okay, let's look at each of the 4 kids. How are they doing? How's Rachel doing? How's Sarah doing? How's Michael doing? How's Joshua doing? What are the particular things they're going through right now? What's the burden, Mom, on you're carrying with this child right now? You know what I mean? So we would have time to be able to talk about those things. And then we would also then pray into the issues we talked about. We would either like pray the rosary, or sometimes we'd feel help. We get on our face on our carpet in the living room and just beg God for help and say, Lord, help us with this child. Give us the grace we need to love this child or do whatever. And then, so we're on the same page. And then the last thing we did is say, okay, let's look at the next 10 days, get the schedule out.
Yes.
What's happening in the next 10 days? All the kids coming and going and shuffling, and cars here, cars there, appointments at the doctor, school stuff. And how are we helping each other do this? How can I help you? Let's get it in the calendar to try to create a basic kind of peace instead of just doing stuff on the fly all the time. And you can go on the fly like for a month and hardly even really connect.
That's right.
So true.
On a deep level. Just, on a level that you need, because the demands are so intense.
That's right. That's right.
And so that's a really good point. I'm living like, this love thing that Jesus is trying to teach us how to do is just going to happen. Instead of intentionally focusing on doing it and asking ourselves a question, are we doing this and how can we help each other do it? So that was a big deal for us. Yeah. It was really happy. I never thought about being that practical about it. Isn't that weird? But it was helpful.
Yes. I want to say 2 practical things just in response to the conversation we just had, is that in reading your book, and I just want to tell everybody who's listening to this, if you're listening to what Peter and Debbie are saying and you're like, oh, I want more of that, I don't want to forget it, buy the book, because some of the things that they've just said right here are included in the book right there that Debbie has. And seriously, it's so, so helpful. And those very practical things, as well as conversation questions that you can kind of go deeper for yourself. So, and just listening to your talk, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember reading that in the book.
Because it is a super, the book has so many practical tools that you make it very real. It's not just highfalutin theology.
Not at all.
And inspiring in many ways, but it's so practical.
It's good stories.
And I don't know, I just love that you just encouraged.
And the second,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just wanted to tell everybody who's listening to a second thing. If you have questions as you are listening to this, please feel free to put them in the chat, because we're going to have time for question at the end. Maybe we'll even put them in like as we're talking. But if Peter and Debbie say something that you think, oh, I don't understand that, or you have something specific, please feel free to put it in the chat. Go ahead, Peter. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to share one kind of funny story, and this was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. This is like a failure of communication. Was the thing about saying what's going on and what's coming up and what you said yes to and all that. One night we were settling down for just a nice dinner, the 2 of us. And I hadn't even made dinner yet, but it was our first night alone in a long time. And we have a big picture window in our living room, and I looked out and there's like a car pulling into our driveway. And I said to Peter, whose car is that? And they had like Ohio license plates. He's like, I don't know. And then the people get out of the car and they're walking up our sidewalk and they're carrying suitcases. And I'm like, who are
This is our life.
yeah. And then Peter's like, oh, shoot, I totally forgot to tell you that I invited these people over to talk with us. And also they're spending the night. And I'm like, are you serious? And so they come in with their suitcases, and the house wasn't a wreck, but it was like I wasn't expecting company. And I'm like, oh. So we looked at each other, and I'm like, it was so laughable that I couldn't even be mad about it. Right, here we go. So I just started pulling like pasta and olive oil and just stuff out of the cabinets, and we just made a lovely dinner and sat with them for hours. And, like God did some significant things in their life, I guess. But,
and so I said, Deb, kill me later, but they're here now. So we got a response. They had,
pretend you like me. Like, let's, we're in this together, lady.
Yeah. And here's this guy, he's a former Nazarene pastor who basically he became Catholic and he got his PhD and all this stuff. And he was dying to talk to us. And I said, yeah, my wife would love to meet you guys sometime. And we actually worked out a date and I totally blanked on it.
Yes.
But thanks, Peter Debbie. She was so flexible. Then I got big trouble after they left, but I had to buy her a new car. No, I'm just kidding.
So there's one advantage of having those weekly meetings is you don't have to buy your wife all the extra, cars and things.
Yeah.
Going back to that weekly meeting thing, I think the point of it, besides bringing a certain kind of order and peace to the situation and caring for each other, is the deepest thing is I know Debbie's heart and my heart. We are building a culture around the person of Jesus Christ, a way of life, a family that's surrendered to the Lordship of Jesus. We want to make it our aim to please the Lord. And to do that, we have to come together and be focused and go to him and ask him and pray together and open our hearts to each other and that kind of stuff, which isn't always easy to do. And some weeks she didn't want to come to the meeting. I didn't want to come to the meeting because we had other things we wanted to do, but we were committed to doing it. And you don't get there to building a way of life without intentionally doing it, using your gifts and your talents and time and energy to make it happen. And you're never going to do it without the input of your spouse. It doesn't work because you do it together. And it's you living together with Jesus, leading the family. So, I'm saying this stuff because this was our ideal. We pursued it. It's not like we were perfect. We could talk for the next 90 minutes about the failures, the weaknesses, and we're weak and broken people, just like everybody I'm looking at right here, But God loves us and we have a lot to do. And he's there to help us, fulfill this dream that's deep in our hearts,
Right.
To be loved, to love our children, to bring our children into the life that we know is the best thing for them. So that's
one of the things that you just mentioned there is you mentioned the word family culture, right? And family culture is something that we at Messy Family Project, we talk about a lot. Because we really believe that's like the secret weapon of the Catholic family is a dynamic family culture that communicates so powerfully, like more powerfully than any written word, to your children about like, what do you expect? What do you believe? It's like, it's your way of life, right? It's everything. And one of the things many things I love about your book, but one of them is that you talk about this idea of family culture and family identity, who you are. Could you just speak to that real quick, just so we can like kind of switch gears a little bit from communication to family identity? Because I think that is so very, very important for families. Like when we say family identity, or when you say that, what do you mean by that? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I think we began to talk about it even before we were married because we had a potential, what I would say is a potential hurdle or a potential amazing thing God was going to do. And that was that I came into the marriage as a Messianic Jewish Catholic. So my Jewish identity, it was and is very, very important to me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even going to consider marrying Peter if that wasn't going to be important to him as well, because we really wanted to raise our kids with this blending of Catholic identity and their Jewish identity, because they are Jewish also.
Because of the mother.
Because it comes from me. So we actually talked about it pretty intentionally because we wanted to make sure we preserved things from our own upbringing that were part of a new identity that we were forming. So it does take a lot of intentionality to say, who are the Herbecks, and what does our family life look like that's distinctive from any other family? Do our kids understand that in a way that they're able to own it? So when they walk out the door, they know what it means to be a Herbeck when they're at school or when they're at a friend's house or when they're at the mall. And if they don't know it, that's a problem because the world out there is telling them something very different about who they are. So, so we began to just look at that and say, what does that mean? Not only for spiritual things, but what does it mean for living daily life? One of the things in our family was we said we will have some non-negotiables. Mass was a non-negotiable for us to do as a family. And we had Life Teen in our parish, and our kids could have gone to Life Teen. We had a beautiful Life Teen program, but I think because it came across so clear that this is something we do as a family, that they really chose instead to go together with us to Mass. Dinner was a non-negotiable. So much so that we turned down some sports opportunities that were going to be happening, in middle school, so that we could be together as a family. Now, as our kids grew in high school, sports and things happened, we had to flex on that, but it was already firmly in place. So our kids understood how important that was. Family prayer, another non-negotiable, and then just celebrating and observing the feast days, Catholic and Jewish as well. So
we had the blessing of Debbie. Before I met Debbie, she was out here in Ann Arbor, and she met the Lord as at the University of Michigan while she was an undergrad, and came to believe in him. And there was a Messianic Jewish congregation in Ann Arbor, other Jewish people who had come to believe in Jesus as the Messiah, and she was a part of that before she became Catholic. And so the leader of it was a Messianic rabbi, a PhD who had written a series of courses of teachings on the feasts of Israel, the great feasts of Israel, Yom Kippur, Passover, all that. And Jesus is the Messiah, is the fulfillment of all those feasts of Israel. Wow. And so we would celebrate those feasts annually, Hanukkah, the rest of them, with a Messianic Jewish focus, with Jesus as a fulfillment of it. So we did Passover every year, filled the house with people, had a wonderful celebration, but it was the Christian understanding of the Passover. Jesus fulfilled the anticipation and the whole story of Passover. So it was easy to integrate, and our kids loved it, and it was a part of who they were and who we are. And so those culture build, what's a culture? The culture is a way of life of a people. It's what they reward. It's what they celebrate. It's what they love. It's what defines them. And so we learned, and people helped us to think about it, because mostly people you just breathe it. You inherit your family background. The Italians do it this way. The Germans do it this way. The Irish do it that way, right? And that's just the way it works. But when you come together, our backgrounds were so different. I'm from a small little farming community in southern Minnesota, German background. My parents could speak fluent German. My wife is a Jewish big city girl. And, we were quite different in coming together and blending our family life. And it really worked by God's grace. It took but without intentionality and commitment to it, it wouldn't happen.
And that's really the key right there. It's the intentionality with it. And the sooner you start with it, and you started talking about this before you even got married. I mean, that's beautiful. That's awesome that you had a firm grasp of, I want these kind of pillars. I want this support in our family culture as I look forward to our marriage. And it's never too late to really become more intentional, right? But we often talk about how, and you've already said it in different words, but we talk about our family culture conferring identity, belonging, and mission on our kids and on ourselves too. Because when we got married, our identity changed, and our belonging changed and our mission changed, and so too for our kids. Like, how those are some powerful moments. And I feel like connecting those weekly meetings help stay on track, right? I mean, you had some intentionality. Did you have it all figured out when you first started, or how did that grow?
Not really, but it's interesting. When I asked Debbie's father for her hand in marriage, he said, he swallowed hard. And then he said, the fact that his daughter was marrying a Gentile and all, there's a big deal. And he said, okay. And then we got a call the next day from them, and they said, look, if you get married in a church, we're not going to come. Wow. So, we want you to have a rabbi there, or we're not going to come. And to me, I was like, I just want a valid marriage. I'll marry her on the moon. I just want to marry this girl. You know what I mean? And we can have that. Sure. Talk to my pastor, and he said, let's talk to the bishop. And the bishop said, you know what? Don't blow up any bridges. That's where my heart was at. I said, look, and he said, why don't he gave us the go ahead. We got married. We said, where do Jewish people often get married? Well, they get married in hotels, a lot of them, with the huppah and the canopy and all that. And so we did that. And we had both our pastor and a rabbi under there, and Debbie's family, and lots of people from Chicago and all that. So it was one of those things, what people told us when we were prepping for marriage, never forget money, sex, in-laws, all that stuff. These are big deals in marriage,
Yes.
And they can cause lots of trouble. And I had to be able to say, this is not maybe the perfect way a Catholic would look at having a marriage, but I thought, look, this is what it means for us to share our background and our identity. And their parents need to be a part of who we are, and I don't want to blow it up. So if this is the way I can have a valid Catholic marriage, we'll go to Mass the next day. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Or whatever. It's together with our pastor, that kind of thing. And it worked out great. It was bridge building,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's really beautiful because right from the get-go too, you're saying part of our identity is this is what's important to us. Our extended family is important. We're not an island. We're not, yes, you are a new family, but you are a family that is coming from other families, because I think a lot of families today feel like they're just going to do it on their own,
That's right.
And we're not meant
super hard
to
to
live
do
that way. Like we're not meant to live that way. One thing I wanted to talk about, because the time is just like flying by.
Let's see.
The time is flying by, but I really did want to speak to those young families who are in the midst of all of the children, right? And in that transition from, hey, like my mom said to me, she said, after I had 3 kids she said, I woke up one day and I said, the last thing I knew, I was in college. Like, what happened? Now all of a sudden I'm at home with 3 children under 5, and I don't know what to do with them, and I think that is a reality that I think a lot of young mothers face today. And Debbie, you and I previously have had that conversation about that hidden life, but how very, very important it is. Mm-hmm. And it's just simply not valued in our world. But I would love for you to just speak to that young mom and just encourage her about what she's doing with her kids and just how important that time is, when they're so little.
Yeah, I think it's very valuable. And there's so many women who are juggling a lot, who need to work full time and also, trying to care for children and keep the house running and all that. I think it's even more challenging than it was when we were raising little kids. The pressure to do that, not just because someone is career minded, but because there's a necessity for the income to do that. So, but I think this is something I've been thinking a lot about lately in retrospect about what it means to be fruitful and the fruitfulness that comes from being very hidden. It takes time to grow something. That's a lot for moms, that kind of hiddenness of life, the thanklessness, to do things that nobody else is seeing, to do things that easily get undone. It's not a very validating thing from day to day. I feel very validated now that my kids are grown, but when you're in the middle of it, you don't feel very validated at all. The world certainly doesn't validate it. And it's not like your kids are writing you, these amazing thank you notes all the time, or, cooperating or whatever. So I think it is, very challenging. It's isolating. It can be lonely. And then it just presses in, I think, for each of us in different ways. Am I really making a difference? Does this really matter? And today more than ever, if no one sees me, does it really matter what I'm doing? And I would say absolutely it does. The role for both parents, but particularly the mother in the stages of life, the younger stages of thinking about raising this eternal soul. And no one else can do that, in the same way that a mom can do that, I believe, that special vocation. But it took me a long time to get there. It took, the Lord's speaking to me very clearly through some very beautiful interventions to really help me to understand how valuable my vocation is as a mother. Why
don't you tell them about the Mother Teresa story?
I was just going to say,
there was a nun story. Yeah.
Would you mind sharing your struggle and your encouragement that the Lord gave you?
Yes, I'll share it very concisely. But 2 kids in, I had a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old, and just really struggling with exactly what I was just expressing to you. And Peter came home one day, super excited. Hey, we both got invited to go to Germany to speak at a conference on the family. And I was very excited. We decided to take our baby Michael with us because he was still nursing. And we went for 5 days and super excited to be giving a talk, to be wearing nice clothes, to be out of the house. I mean, all those things.
And just a little background, she almost never mentions, this was it's called the World Congress on the Family. There were 5,000 European Catholic aristocrats there and scholars and all these kind of people. And it was the first time we'd ever done anything quite like that. And it was a big deal. And so she was super excited. I was super happy for her. And then Mikey got sick. But anyway.
Yeah. So packed up to go. And, from the get-go, he's like sleeping all day and up all night. And our luggage got lost. My jewelry got stolen. I mean, everything, which I could have endured, except we arrived and one of the conference organizers came to us and said, we overbooked our speakers and only one of you can speak at this conference.
Oh my gosh.
So Peter did it. And I was very supportive and very happy for him to do it. But I really struggled and said to the Lord, why am I even here? This was a lot of work to get here. Why am I even here? So he did a great job. Very proud of him. I'm struggling a bit. We go to the final session, which, this is in 1990, maybe 1989. So no cell phones, no, I'm not on the internet, like looking at the program. We walk in this huge hall and I see the poster for the keynote speaker, Mother Teresa of Calcutta. So I'm like, well, that's cool. Like, at least I'm going to hear Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
And we're walking up to our premium seats in the balcony because he was a speaker. And one of the conference women taps me on the shoulder and says, because I was holding my baby, and she said, excuse me, Mother Teresa would like about a dozen of the women with babies in their arms to sit with her on the stage. And so I start to walk away and Peter's like, where are you going? And I'm like, I'm going to sit with Mother Teresa.
And you can't come.
Yeah.
They overbooked Peter. I'm sorry. They only have room for the moms.
Exactly. So he went up to the balcony and I sat on the stage, and I remember everything she said, talking about the value and the dignity of human life, how the first one to ever greet Jesus was John the Baptist in the womb. I mean, I was like, 6 feet away from her, and the babies were silent. I mean,
it's amazing. Not a peep.
A miracle.
Wow. Oh.
Anyway, I was like, wow, this was like amazing. I feel so like inspired. And so then I'm leaving the stage and the same woman grabs me and she says, don't go. Mother Teresa would like to meet every single one of the women who sat with her. So they brought me backstage and I'm waiting in line. Again, no cell phones. I'm not setting up for a selfie. I'm not texting people to tell them this is happening. I'm just praying, my baby can be quiet. Before I knew it, I'm standing in front of Mother Teresa, like leaning down to greet her. She presses a miraculous medal into my hand, which is kind of her calling card. She blesses my son, Michael. And then I just said, Mother, it's just so good to meet you. And I turned to go, and she actually pulled me into her very close. And she looked at me right in the eyes and she said, never forget that your job as a mother is the most important job in the whole world. And it was like, in that moment, I knew exactly why I was there. Yes. That God had brought me around the world to tell me that what I was doing was important and that he saw it and he valued it. And it was a game changer for me. I didn't mean I never struggled with it again, but it was like this word. It was like, he was like, I see you. I know you. And I love you right where you are. And I went home and I began to read everything I could about Mother Teresa and the way that she loved. And I honestly want to say she taught me how to love. She taught me how to do small things with great love, how to love the person right in front of me. The ripple effect of loving one person at a time. And it began to inform my vocation as a mother, as a wife, as a friend, as a sister. And then it began to blossom into a ministry later on when I was able to do that. And so my son, Michael, today is that 6-month-old is now a grown man with 4 children. He's a father, and his supreme love language is acts of service and that kind of attentiveness to his family. And I really believe that when Mother blessed him, she put something in him.
Right.
On that day. So double blessing,
Yeah.
For it all. But I think about her a lot. Obviously, she's still very active in my life. But that word, and I whenever I can, I tell that to women, especially women that were in that phase of life that I was, because we need to hear that. Yes. And often we can't hear it in our own homes. We can't receive it from our husbands or other people. And we need sometimes someone else to step in and really tell us that what we're doing is valuable and important.
Because it's the whole mind shift of it's not just not getting good grades, or a paycheck, to get that affirmation. But even more so now with the advent of social media and everything, people even want affirmation in that way. And I think it's more challenging than ever to step back and to be like, okay, wait a minute. That's not where I should be receiving. I should not be looking for that affirmation from out there. But like you said, just really knowing your Heavenly Father sees you. Yeah. Your Heavenly Father sees you, and He is forming you into the woman you are to be through your children. And that's the greatest formation. Like I would not be the person I am today without my children. I would be nothing, because they have taught me so much. Mm-hmm. They have taught me so much and made me. And because God used them, because that was my path to holiness.
And that was the hidden formation that happens in the home, in the school of love, right?
That's right.
It's it's obvious that, a father and a mother are both needed, but sometimes I marvel and say, man, what the kids need most is their mother. You know what I mean? Yeah. So many levels of the impact mothers have. And I think about my own family. My dad had impact on me too, for sure. But I think one of the things we learned too, that I just want to mention, before we leave is, and I think if we'd have started earlier, that would have been helpful looking back, is, we both came from our own backgrounds. You know how you bring your own family of origin issues, as well as the blessings and the great history and everything, but also the secrets and the background and the pain and the suffering and, that kind of brokenness of family life. And it actually has, it had a bigger impact on me than I realized. And it was something I had to, and being transparent and being open to being able to face our own brokenness and getting help, like getting support, getting encouragement, putting your cards on the table. And then sometimes even like, Debbie and I just was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? Dr. Bob Schutz down at the John Paul II Healing Center, he was in town. We were filming some stuff with him. And I was just talking about my life and different struggles in my life and my background, because he was asking me, he's that kind of guy. And he goes, hey, you don't want to be, I think you and your wife, Debbie, ought to come down to our Healing the Whole Person week, because God's not finished with you yet. And I think you still have some stuff. And I don't have to tell you what he said, but and I'm like, yeah, I do. I do have some unresolved things and we went together on this week together, and it was amazing. And it was another step to just go deeper in love, gain freedom, gain healing.
Yes.
Deeper healing, health. That's why I put like just get healthier. Just get healthy, and it's hard for guys to say, look, I don't need that. I'm fine. You know what I mean? It just stop already.
I got it. I
got plenty to do. Don't give me that stuff. I'm not going to some touchy-feely thing. It's not happening. I'm going to the ball game instead or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, but there's some of that stuff is literally an obstacle to the very goal you want to have, like deeper personal intimacy in your marriage, capacity to communicate with each other, tenderness of heart and mind, and willingness to serve. So the Lord wants to keep healing us, but there's shame, there's embarrassment around stuff like that just like, forget it. The Lord's, if you ask the Lord for help, He will open doors and go through those doors, because He's more for you and He's more for what He's doing in your marriage than you are.
Yeah, yeah. God believes in your marriage more than you do, and He wants you to succeed more than you can on your own, right?
You know what? And I want to just incorporate a question that we had from one of our listeners here, kind of along those lines of what you were just saying about growth and holiness and woundedness and need of healing. How do you handle the conversations between you? Like, for example, in your husband-wife meetings, if there's an area that is coming up that maybe one spouse, you see it in your husband, or you see it in your wife, and you recognize that this is going to be a difficult topic for us to talk about. How do you approach that? And how do you make that time? Like, would it come up in those husband-wife meetings? You have a separate time to talk about it. How do you handle those
more substantive,
deeper wounds, like in the midst of family life that do need to be addressed?
Yeah, I think some mistakes we've made in how we've handled it are doing it at like 11 o'clock at night. Never helpful, really. And because he's an external processor and really likes to make it happen, sometimes I would have to say to him, I do want to talk about this, but I can't. Like,
right.
You know,
It's too much.
It's too much right now. I don't have the energy, physical or emotional, to do that. And
well, that's just it. But even in a moment like that, I could have the thought like, okay, fine, but when are we going to do it? You know what I mean? Like, you know, this is where the husband and wife meeting thing came in, but go ahead. Yeah.
So, and then realizing, you know, and this worked for both of us, I'll just speak for myself, what kind of the triggers are, like when something gets brought up and then I'm feeling like, I'm always the problem, or I've battled discouragement. So I get discouraged, like, oh, this is, you know, this never changes, or how we talk about it. Like you're the always and the never, and the, you know, like the extreme kind of hyperbolic, you know, about it.
God never speaks like that, or God doesn't speak like that, you know, the always and the never. Yeah, exactly.
Like, really? I never, you know, do this, or I always do this. So we've learned a lot about how to communicate, and, you know, and when the walls of defensiveness come up, you know, which is easy to happen, even though you feel like you do trust this person and you know their heart, is to say, all right, learning to identify what's going on in me right now that I feel so that I have to defend myself, or I have to protect myself. That's probably a better word for it.
Yes.
What, you know, what is that wound there? And is it about the way he's communicating it, or is it not that at all? It's just kind of learned behavior about self-protection. So we've kind of muddled our way through it, honestly, but learning to find the right time when we both have the emotional energy and uninterrupted time to really discuss it. Sometimes you don't. You just need to go. You just need to get at it because it's that important.
Yeah.
But so it's a lot of trial and error and figuring out what works best.
You know, we all had, you know, in the early years, we handled conflict at times in a way that was not helpful. You know, like if you know, it's communication is getting mad, you're getting frustrated, you get really mad, you know. And a couple of times I yelled, you know, and I'm mad, and, you know, this kind of thing. And so we ended up really the Lord helped me a lot, just to say, look, you know, I was reading the passage of the Bible. It says, you know, be angry, but don't sin. And I feel like anger is normal. It's a normal, you know, emotion.
Yeah.
But anger needs to be submitted to love in the right kind of way. But I was reading it, and the Lord said, you know, you still got some anger that's outside the bounds, buddy. I love you. And you need to learn some things, and you can't just speak to your wife any way you want to. You know, like you can't say things to her that are hurtful. That's my daughter, you know. Wow. And I was like, okay, Lord, you know. And so we decided to get together. So, okay, we're going to have troubles. We're going to have. How do you have a good fight? Like, how do you have a genuine argument?
Right.
That you know, that has deep emotion, that is actually serving the higher purpose of wanting to have unity and love, but you're honest at the same time, you know? And so we just listed some things. Okay, I won't go ballistic. You won't go subterranean. You know what I mean? And, you know, the various responses we have, and we're going to decide practically how will we handle it in the moment. We wrote it down because we had blown it I particularly blew it. And we wrote down on 3x5 cards, we put them in our Bibles to say, okay, when there's a conflict coming up, I'm committed to talking to you, and I'm committed to not letting my emotions get out of control, you know, in terms of just verbally saying something or whatever. And Debbie's committed to not, you know, being passive aggressive, let's say, or being quiet and expecting me to figure it all out, you know, or whatever, that kind of stuff. So we had practical things, and we're going to repent quickly. We're going to be honest about it. We're going to seek forgiveness. We're going to extend forgiveness, because that's what pleases the Lord. And if you don't do that, what I found was, you know, resentment builds up over time. If you got a set of things and you don't resolve them, resentment builds up, and the devil lets that build up, and it's not healthy, and it undermines it, you know. So having a basic plan, you know, like it was just a 3 or 4
huge
thing that said sort of like how to have a godly fight, you know what I mean, or an argument.
Yeah. And how to win every time, because your unity is the winner.
Yeah, you don't displease. And the bottom line is, we always kind of made it our motto from St. Paul, make it your aim to please the Lord.
Yeah.
So to say, I want his help, and what is pleasing to the Lord right now. And I remember one time the Lord said, well, what's pleasing to me is you need to not blame Debbie and you need to go seek her forgiveness on this issue. That's what I felt in my heart. And I felt like, no, Lord, it's her fault. She should be asking me for forgiveness on this one. You know what I mean? And kind of being that way, he said, no, be quick to seek forgiveness, extend mercy, go. If you really want my help, do what I tell you to do. That's kind of what I felt like it was saying. I'm a simple guy, and that just kind of connected with me. And so I think that really helped us, so.
And just to kind of bridging off of that, I just want to close it out with talking about the spiritual life of the home, right? About spiritual leadership that mom and dad provide, particularly the spiritual fatherhood. It's, I remember my father-in-law telling me that a real man is the one who asks for forgiveness first. But
that's part of being the leader.
Is starting, leading with love, leading with that level of forgiveness, and which isn't always easy. But I had a prayer life, but I wasn't a spiritual leader in the home right away. And I think many men struggle with how to lead, how to be a spiritual leader in the home. Any encouragements for the dads, for the moms as well. But, how do we step into a role in the family to really make our family a Christ-centered family, to be that spiritual leader that we probably want to be, but we're not exactly sure how to get there?
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think it's been a kind of a marvel for me. I'm grateful for men who helped me grow in that, because it wasn't like something I learned in my home, so spiritual leadership. Like when I grew up, we never really talked about the Lord at home. We did rosary, like during Lent, we went to mass on Sunday, but it was never part of the conversation. And years later, after I got more fully converted, I remember having a conversation with my dad, as an old tank commander, Patton's Third Army, Battle of the Bulge. He was at Mauthausen concentration camp. He could speak fluent German. I mean, my dad lived through it, and he was a dude, he was a man. But he also had PTSD and stuff. But I remember after a big healing happened in our family, looking back, I said, Dad, I want to ask you a question, but this is not a judgment at all. Like, how come we never had a conversation about Jesus in our family? Like I never had one with you, Dad, and you never initiated one. It's like, I'm not blaming him. I'm just curious. And here's what he said. He goes, that's what we paid the nuns for. That's their job. That was just kind of old school. And it was like, and that's because Dad didn't know it either. You know what I mean? And Mom, it's Mom's job kind of thing. And so one of the things I learned in the years of doing ministry, it's amazing to me how many men I've met who are like a big success in business, or they're very confident in all kinds of different realms, but in their own home, being a spiritual leader freaks them out. Yes. They just don't feel comfortable. They don't know what to do. They're afraid of looking stupid. They're afraid of making a mistake. They don't.
We feel incompetent.
Yeah, you feel incompetent. Yeah. And so it often gets deferred to the wife because she's more intuitive about the whole thing, and more own about it. And so what I would say to guys is, what I've learned and what a lot of guys have learned is like, this really is the great adventure. And God wants to help you become more of a spiritual leader in your home. And you'll do it differently according to your personality, your gifting and temperaments and God's grace. But I'd say get help from other men who are a little further down the road. How do you do it? I mean, read a book like this, like How Did Herbeck Do It? Let's take a few tips from him. Find other men and saying, how are you leading spiritually in your home? And what does that look like? And it's a lot simpler than you think. And when a man leads, I mean, it's simple, but it's not easy sometimes, you know what I mean? Because you have to overcome insecurities or, distractions and other kinds of things. But it's incredibly rewarding. And every single poll that's done on the church and on conversion says the dad has a massive impact on whether a kid that's growing up is going to follow the Lord or not. That's a huge responsibility. It's sort of like you're the high priest of your family. You know what I mean? You and your wife together are leading. I mean that, but you have a particular role of authority of imaging God the Father in a particular way too. That's critical. And all you have to do is just in humility begin to ask the Lord, I want to fulfill this role. I'm uptight about it. I don't know what I'm doing. No one's ever taught me about it, but I'm wide open. Please bring people into my life. And you pray that every day. Jesus said, if you seek it, if you want it, you're going to get it. I will give it to you. But the question is, what do you want? That's what I talk to a lot of men about. What do you really want? There's a lot of other things out there a lot of men are pursuing, and in life, I realize that all of us men, for example, like I know guys who are CEOs of companies and they're always super busy and they're all over the world, but they always find time to golf, no matter what. They always find time to hunt, no matter what, or fish. Like men will find time for what they love.
That's right.
That's what they want to do. That's okay. That's okay. That stuff is fine. But they stay out of the spiritual because they feel uncomfortable,
Right.
And I want to do something that'll be a win, not a loss. You know what I mean? I'm not sure how to be a winner in that moment, guys. You know what I mean? How to lead. So.
Well, the last thing that I just want to just kind of because we'd like to just pray together before we go. The one thing that really struck me too in your book is that, and you said this at the beginning and you reminded me that marriage is a natural thing, but a Catholic marriage is a supernatural reality. And you kind of bring that out through the entire book, which I really appreciated so much, to recognize that what we are trying to do in raise our families and communicating the faith and living a life of holiness, this isn't for the natural man, right?
Yeah.
This is a supernatural thing. So we need a supernatural grace.
So if you're struggling in your marriage, in your family, then you need more grace.
That's right. And that,
yeah. Don't be afraid.
And I really appreciated that. I don't know if you just wanted any comment on that, just that supernatural reality, because I think that even for me, like who I'm like running this, Catholic family ministry, even just you saying that, I was like, I never thought about it in that way. And I really appreciated that. And I felt it was a great encouragement, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In a certain way, it's the best news ever.
Yeah.
Because everybody who's watching tonight knows they can't do it on their own.
That's
and
right.
To know that it's a supernatural reality means help is here and it's on the way whenever we ask for it. Yes. There's so much power there and so much grace from the Lord to do this. And so to me, that's like the best news ever, is that and it's exciting. We're being called to this supernatural reality that's adventurous, mm-hmm. Peter said, to help one another and our kids get to heaven. And so we need lots of help along the way. It's very, very humbling. Marriage is super hard. 5 years in, I remember waking up one morning and thinking, I do not know how to love. Yeah. And I didn't go to a bookstore to get a book. I didn't tune into a podcast or whatever. I just got on my knees and I just began to pray. And I said, God, you have got to teach me what it means.
It's like expand my heart. It's not like Debbie didn't know how to love. I knew she knew how to love because she loved me, but the family grew and the pressures grew and it became challenging. So the Lord wants to expand our hearts. Yes. And when we're humble, like Jesus said, come and learn from me. I'm meek and humble of heart. Come and just be with me and tell me, I'll help you. And you give you grace. But he wants you to seek it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And because it brings you to him. He wants you to be with him and abide in him and draw strength. But if you're not coming to him, it won't happen. You know what I mean? So, it's just unbelievably rewarding. And, all the great things that are rewarding are challenging,
That's right.
That's right.
A lot of things are difficult. And when they're over, they're amazing, Yeah. So the Lord's with us on that and being able to know it and count on him and lean on him. Yes. And lean on others is really, really, really important. If we didn't draw pretty consistently over the years, grace from living with Jesus and learning how to have passion for Jesus. And how do you get that? You get passion for Jesus by learning how much passion he has for you, right? How much he loves you, how much he wants to give you. Otherwise, you're like white knuckling it. I'm trying to get through this. I'm failing, you know what I mean? It's like a moral, it's like Catholicism, and then marriage becomes like a moral striving constantly. Like, am I meeting the standard? And white knuckling it through things and stuff instead of living with him and having a passion. When that passion keeps deepening in you, it's amazing the power that's there to love and to please him and do because then you're living for an audience of one that is really powerful. So,
are there any saints? Someone had just sent us a message. Are there any saints or a particular devotion that you have that you go to ask for that power to love, for that supernatural grace for marriage?
For me, it's Saint Mother Teresa of Calcutta, because she is like the expert on love, I think, personally. Obviously, from my story, how meaningful That's been, to me, I think, the Holy Family, obviously, and the way they, St. Joseph and our mother, Mary.
Yeah. I'd say my go-to guy is St. Francis, 100%.
Of Assisi.
St. Francis, I love him so much, and he has inspired me so much. And I talk to him a lot. I mean, I don't hear his voice, but I know he's listening, and pray. And I just love his love. I just love who he is. I just love his simplicity and humility and radical love for the Lord.
Total abandon, total abandon to the Lord.
Total abandon is joy. I mean, he's so full of joy. Anybody here who's ever gone to Assisi, you know it. Everybody in town feels it when you're there. Like, this brother conquered this place. I don't think there's a demon anywhere near the place. You know what I mean? It's just like, there's such a joy and so much life there. And I've read a lot about him and pray, and man, he's the best. So
great.
I want to be like him. I said, Lord, I want to be like him. I want to be like him. Really do. I'm not him, but I want to be like him,
But we have a marker. We have somebody that we look to both for encouragement and intercession, but also someone to say, I want to be like him. Like that. We're not giving up. We're not settling. We're not looking for the mediocre path. We're looking for the upward calling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also want to say the church needs married saints. So get at it. I think the Lord wants to raise up in this generation married saints who can be, someday someone's going to look at someone here who's watching and say, I'm asking them for help. I'm asking their intercession, because they are the saints that we need in the church today. And so I think that's the next step, is who's up next,
Yeah. And they show us, like, men, talking to men again, a lot of things men often talk about sports, and we'll talk about who's the GOAT, who's the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
Tom Brady or Joe Montana? Is it Jack Nicklaus or Tiger Woods? Who is it? Messi, or is it, the other guy? And so guys, it's fun to talk about that kind of stuff. But what does greatness mean? Jesus, what does heaven crown and call great? Humility, love, mercy, tenderness. The world doesn't celebrate that, but that is what's truly great. Mary's the queen of heaven and earth. You know what I mean? And she's just humility itself. You know what I mean? So anyway, I think we need to value and help each other value what is truly great. And the saints help us remember that. Jesus said, the great commandment, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And in Luke, he adds on to Moses's line. He said, this is the first and the greatest thing. Yeah. This is what's first and what really constitutes true greatness. And how anybody really knows that?
Amen.
And God knows it, and he's going to crown greatness, and we have to help each other celebrate that stuff. And we
need each other to do that, right? We need the communion here on earth, as well as connected to the communion in heaven.
So I'm going to give you a quick heads up. I'm going to ask you guys to close us in prayer, to pray for our couples. But before I ask you to do that, where can people buy the book?
You can get it First Renewal Ministries. I think we're still doing free shipping. Renewal Ministries, and you can do it there. Renewalministries.net. Just go there and you can browse. You got a lot of good stuff there for free, you guys. You can browse, and videos and shows and radio and TV and all that kind of stuff. But the book can find there, or Amazon too, whatever is your preference. And I'm sure you can get it at Emmaus Road Publishing. The publisher.
That's right. Yeah, and we had a bunch of people. We'll send the link out too for folks. We'll put it in the follow-up email for folks as well who are interested in the book.
Yeah.
And again, thank you both for writing this book, for really putting a lot of your years and your stories in this. It made it very real, very practical, and truly inspiring. So thanks for your time and the work that you're doing. And could you close our night in prayer?
Sure. I'll pray for the Lord. Amen. All right. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, I thank you for each couple here, but in particular, I pray for each woman who is represented. Thank you for her sacrificial love. I thank you for all the things that she does every single day that are unseen, that are unheralded, uncelebrated, that she does out of love for you and her husband and her children and others. And Lord, I pray in a special way tonight she might know her value and her dignity as your daughter, that she might know that she is doing exactly what you're asking her to do. And Lord, I pray for the grace to love more deeply and to draw more deeply into your heart.
Amen. Lord, I pray for our brothers who are gathered tonight. Lord, I pray that through the grace of the Holy Spirit, each one of us as men could come to see the dignity and the call that we have as fathers to lead, to protect, to be the spiritual leaders of our home. And pray, Lord, that you would increase in each of us a knowledge of your passion for us, what it means, your love for us, that our passion for you and the Father and what you've called us to would grow. Help us overcome fears. Help us overcome our own weaknesses. Help us to form brotherhood together with others, and help us to serve our wives and our children for the glory of your name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Peter and Debbie, thank you so much. We really just appreciate your time and your expertise and your love for couples and your love for the Lord.
And you're getting a lot of applause here from our fans and listeners and followers. But really, it is great to be with you. And we encourage you to stay connected with Peter and Debbie through Renewal Ministries and their great work that they have there and so many of their programs, as well as this book.
Yeah, we'll see you all next time.
Yeah, thanks for having us. God bless.
Yeah, God bless you guys.
Bye-bye. So I hope that you were really blessed by that conversation. And don't forget to tune in next week when we're having our conversation about family retreats. And if you are so inclined, if you want to support our ministry, to go to our website, messyfamilyproject.org/give to support our ministry.
Yeah, this is what we do. We hope this is a blessing to you, and getting together, whether it be using our conversation that we had here as maybe a conversation that you and your spouse want to have. Maybe it sparks some ideas. Maybe you want to share snippets of this. Again, this is both in a podcast form as well as video. So if you want to see the video, go to messyfamilyproject.org to watch the date night and share little parts of it. And be with us on this journey. So God bless you. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.